This is Valley News Live at 10.
Right now, we are following breaking news. Police were on the scene of a situation in Wahpeton. Dispatch audio stated an individual was being held at gunpoint. It was also suggested by dispatchers that at least one suspect has been caught. It's unclear what prompted the incident, as Wahpeton police are not releasing information at this time. Stay with the Valley News Live as we learn more. New tonight. A Fargo man has been charged with 19 felonies, including for prostitution and drugs, and each count carries between 5 and 20 years in prison. Aaron Evenson was arrested earlier this month in East Grand Forks. An investigation found there were at least 10 instances where he participated in arranging sex for money of a female victim. The acts were set up through a social media site called FedLife. Evenson is also charged for violent threats and harassment after texts were found on his phone that was allegedly intended to inflict fear and harm against the victim. Now on to our weather. Jim is here now with a first look at our forecast. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Nashay. We have those first alert weather days on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as that winter storm is headed our way. Now, this thing has finally made landfall on the Pacific coast, so we'll start to be able to see things a little more clearly since it's past that boundary. Now, it still has the Rocky Mountains to go through, but right now we're looking at the bulk of the heavy snow for North Dakota falling on Tuesday and Wednesday, and as that wind picks up, travel will become an issue as blowing snow will reduce visibility. Now, things for North Dakota will start to wind down on Thursday, but as that storm moves east, Minnesota will become the hotbed for the snow, and they will experience some heavy snow on Thursday into Friday and even into Saturday in some places. But right now things are pretty calm up in Grand Forks, a little breeze on those flags there, and temperatures across the area are sitting just under 30 degrees for most, though in the south we see a couple 30s on the board, and we're seeing mostly cloudy skies and some flurries here and there, particularly in the south. Now, Nashay, I'll have more information about what we expect with that snowstorm coming up in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. Also new tonight, no one was hurt in a laundry room fire at a Fergus Falls nursing home. Firefighters responded to the Minnesota Veterans Home around 1:15 this afternoon. There, they found a fire in a laundry room on the northeast side of the building. Fire officials say the sprinkler system was able to contain the fire until their arrival. They say the fire was unintentional and started in a ceiling ventilation fan. The Fargo Police Department wants to further the training of their officers. The department is looking to buy a simulator to help train officers on pursuit tactics. Currently, officers are provided with the Emergency Vehicle Operations course, which focuses on vehicle handling and decision making on a tri-annual basis. But Chief Dave Zabolski says the EVOC does not offer a safe space such as a driving course or facility to allow officers to effectively train. The simulator is expected to cost roughly $140,000, and seized asset funds would be used to pay for it. The former police chief of the Yankton Sioux tribe in South Dakota has been charged with wire fraud and theft from the tribe. The fire chief sought wages both from the tribe and a local ministry that was providing flood relief. According to court documents, he was paid about $30,500 for overlapping hours on 139 days. He has pleaded not guilty to 18 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of theft from the tribe. Congressional leaders and the White House are struggling to reach a deal on a massive government funding package. Democrats and Republicans still have not agreed on top-line spending numbers that will fund the federal government through the fiscal year that ends in September of 2023. The two parties are about $26 billion apart on domestic spending. Lawmakers warn that they almost certainly will need to pass a short-term measure to avoid a shutdown at the end of the week. On Thursday, WNBA Brittany Griner was released from a Russian prison in a prisoner swap for convicted arms dealer Victor Bout. But Paul Whelan, a United States Marine, is still being held in a Russian prison since his arrest in 2018.
It's been very difficult for my family to hear my brother discussed as if his only value was what we would have to give up for him. I do know that I will be bearing down much more pressure on the people I've been working with because I don't want to see this happen again.
Meanwhile, U.S. officials say they are still working to get Paul released. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby says the administration is, quote, more informed on the Russians' view of Paul's case after the release of Brittany Griner.
As we progress through the summer and into the fall, again, the conversations ongoing with the Russians, it was clear, Martha, that they were treating Paul very separately, very distinctly because of these sham espionage charges they levied against him.
Whelan was arrested on alleged espionage charges in 2018. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison in a trial that the U.S. is calling unfair. A Libyan intelligence official was taken into custody for suspicion of making the bomb threat that blew up a passenger plane over the Scottish town of Lockerbie in 1988. Authorities in the U.S. and Scotland announced today that the suspect was taken into custody. The suspect is accused of making the bomb that brought down Pan Am Flight 103 and killed a total of 270 people. Today marks exactly 1 month since Russia's troops withdrew from Kherson in Ukraine and its vicinity after an 8-month occupation. But life in the southern city is still very far from normal. The departing Russians left behind all sorts of ugly surprises, and their artillery continues to batter the city. The regional administration said yesterday that shelling over the past month has killed 41 people, including a child, and 96 were hospitalized. Governor Tim Walz visited Minnesota-based troops in Kuwait this week just ahead of the holidays. More than 80 soldiers of the 347th RSG were deployed back in April to the Middle East, including Kuwait, to provide assistance in a variety of areas, including base operations and logistics support. Another 25 soldiers from the 147th HRC headed over to the Middle East back in September. Coronavirus-related hospital admissions are climbing again in the United States, with older adults a growing share of U.S. deaths and less than half of nursing home residents up to date on COVID-19 vaccinations. Hospitalizations for people with COVID-19 rose by more than 30% in 2 weeks. Much of the increase is driven by older people and those with existing health problems, said the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. About 1 in every 600 flights in the U.S. has a medical emergency, and now a group of doctors is sounding the alarm about inadequate airline medical kits. But one father was flying with his 11-year-old daughter when her eyes started swelling and her airway began to close. This father knew he needed an EpiPen, but the flight attendant said they didn't have one.
All I kept thinking of is I'm going to lose my daughter. I would never want another parent to go through that feeling of this could be it.
Commercial airlines are required by the FAA to carry emergency medical kits, which include epinephrine to treat allergic reactions, but they aren't required to have it in pre-measured doses that are easy to administer using a device like an EpiPen. Luckily for the young girl, a doctor on board was able to administer the proper dose to keep her alive. A woman in the Fargo-Moorhead area has been battling several health issues, but while that can be daunting on your own, Valley News Team's Aaron Walling tells us about how the community has come together to share their support.
50-year-old Angie Mueller's health battles started in 2010. It has developed to her dealing with Sjogren's syndrome, degenerative disc disease, fibromyalgia, and neuropathy, just to name a few.
A bad day, I don't really get out of bed.
Through this, she has lost her job, had to move in with her mother, and lives in constant pain.
There are plenty of times that I need help with anything on the daily, whether it's help getting dressed or putting a jacket on, even raising my arm to get a garage door open.
And she is facing mounting medical bills, but the community has come together to raise support for her.
It's nice to have everybody encouraging us and being there to get her through, especially this last couple of months with the COVID situation.
That's what we do. We take care of our own, and of course, when she's in need, we will be there and we will do what we need to do for her.
The former radio DJ says she is grateful for the support despite the plethora of challenges she is facing.
I can't even express my gratitude and appreciation. It's just a wonderful feeling, and it actually just chokes me up so much I can't explain it.
In North Fargo, Aaron Walling, Valley News Live.
A cameraman for the Bison football games recently completed his chemotherapy for Hodgkin's lymphoma. Since late June, the man has been fighting the cancer all while still doing his job. The Bison Nation and the community has shown him a lot of love and support, a gesture he says means a lot.
These fans, these Bison Nation, these people around me, have done. It's just been so overwhelming.
Later on Valley News Live at 10, many police departments are fighting back with high-tech plans to catch porch pirates.
Today we were quite warm here in the valley, 32 for our high, which normally it's 26, and that low temperature quite a bit above our normal low as well. That's thanks to warm south breeze ahead of this winter storm that's headed our way on Tuesday. I'll have details with that storm coming up next.